Well, let's get started. It's a couple of minutes after. We'll call to order and have roll call.
Cynthia Hoyle.
I'm here.
Annie Adams. Kara Dudek.
Here.
Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Susan Jones. Jeff Marino.
Here.
Craig Schunkweiler.
Here.
Lily Wilcock.
Here.
We made quorum.
Yay. All right. Approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Somebody's here now. I thought they were coming. Didn't they say they were coming? Does anybody have any changes for the agenda? Okay. Then will someone move to approve it?
I move that we approve the Tuesday, January 17th, 2017 agenda as is.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved.
I approve of the agenda too.
I approve.
I thought you were coming.
I had to drag her away from the council meeting, you know.
I walked into it was the best part. I was like,
Like,
look at all the
I
people here.
glanced over there. It's like, oh yeah, that's not our meeting.
That's your
And I
first sign that you're in the wrong
You know,
place.
you said something about you got that, so I thought you meant get the elevator. And then it's like, no, you're
I was
walking
like, where
in.
is she going, man?
And I'm like, you know,
It was so fun.
but you're fine. That's-
Winning. Yeah, I am. I had a long meeting today night. Like,
And I had a phone call that
With good
I didn't come
outcomes.
into, you know, like.
So we're on item number 3, approval of the minutes from previous meetings. I sent in some changes. Did anybody else have any corrections, changes?
No, that's, I saw some
appreciate
places and I
that you do
thought,
that.
oh, Cynthia, I hope we'll remember that, so, you know, as I
I
thought.
forget what it was I changed, but there was something that said I said that I was pretty sure I didn't say. But I'm no telling how it came out. That just was confusing. And so, all right. Then is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I approve the amended minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
And that's what
Any
last month's
opposed?
minutes said the same thing, but I approve the amended minutes.
Well, we'll skip over public input since there's no public. Unfinished business. I don't think we had any. Did anyone have anything we needed to? All right. So straight on to new business. And so we had a revision on the 2017 meeting dates.
It was just the August
Yeah,
meeting date was
right.
on a Wednesday and said it's actually supposed to be a Tuesday, so.
Okay.
Just a long number, so it was a,
Yes.
okay.
All right.
A typo fix.
Ta-da. Okay, and then I had asked that we talk a little about implementation and timeline for the bicycle master plan. And so I guess I'll ask Steph what they had in mind, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I can start.
Okay.
Well, you know, we just got the plan approved, so we're still trying to digest, but
And the holiday tsunami was,
yeah. But within chapter 12, you know, which is the implementation chapter, there's a lot of really good guidance in there. I will say on page 299 of the master plan, there's a high priority infrastructure recommendation. Kevin, can we get this computer?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've got it on a flash drive, and then we can kind of pull it up and look,
well, that would be good.
and that way.
Oh,
we're
wow.
on the
That's
same
your
page.
Dropbox too.
yeah.
And we can talk about a little bit about the infrastructure recommendations. We also have goal sheets that the Regional Plan Commission developed. We can kind of go through that a little bit, just in brief. There's a lot of detail involved in those. But we can kind of see where we're headed, you know, I think over the course of the next 5 years. And I think Kevin's got some thoughts on the things that that community development would be handling.
Oh, good, it's just my edits. Oh, I'm pretty sure I'm over here somewhere. But those are not it. And it's not big enough. Guess I could put it up on the website. Maybe we can turn down some of the lights. It's really bright here.
There you
Oh,
go.
actually, I prefer that over.
Yeah.
Very nice, thank you.
That's good too?
Oh, yeah. Mood lighting. Cookies. 29.
So Craig mentioned that I might have some thoughts on community development side of things. I have to admit I got into a meeting at the end of the day that took up my time that I was planning to use to go through the plan and think about implementation. But I do think there's a lot in the goals and objectives that we could, that we can start on relatively quickly. I think, as Craig, you may have said while I was booting up the computer, there's a lot of stuff infrastructure-wise that we're already doing.
Yeah, we had the matrix, but it is a bit,
You got it? Okay.
it is a bit overpowering.
How about,
It's really big.
what I prefer, I think, this meeting, since we're just getting going, is maybe we'll talk a little bit bigger picture of what staff looks at as far as our guiding principles.
And
And then we can get into the weeds, so to speak, perhaps at another meeting.
Okay.
Because we have other items on the agenda.
okay,
So within, I'll just pull this one up. This is chapter 12
Yep.
of the master plan. So I would say this staff follows this guide here. And within this guide, there's a lot of text and talks about basically not just having a static network. Maybe there's reevaluations within this 5-year period. Maybe that, we have different growth patterns within the city that we need to take into account, or a new traffic generator or something like that. So it's not just a static plan there too. But as we get down through here, this right here,
some of those are already done.
yeah, so these are the high priority infrastructure recommendations. And I will say, I think staff, we went on ahead, we didn't wait for the plan to get approved, we went ahead and, started the process, so to speak. So when we look at some of these listed items in here, we've already, like this 1A, B, C, 1A would be done this year. B was built last year, and then C was built actually in 15. So, we're already moving forward with our implementation. The Kickapoo Rail Trail access, so the construction, which is Urbana is not involved in, is already underway. But I will let you know that as far as how to get the trail to Weaver Park is of interest to the Park District and the City of Urbana and the Forest Preserve District. We have been in preliminary discussions with Regional Plan Commission to do a study. So
good.
we're looking at a feasibility study to see what is the best route. Because there are some challenges along what we call the Main Street Spur and along 130 itself and Smith Road. There's just actually physical challenges that we've got to assess, and we have to look at that. I'll be bringing more information on that this year as we come along.
Oh, good.
Number 3 is to begin to establish the Green Loop Trail in conjunction with the Park District. That really ties in with number 4, which is the wayfinding signage, which I intend to bring in February, at least the overview, sort of like Brad did with the PED master plan. Within there will be, the signage that we will ultimately look at for the Green Loop as well. And then we have to work with Kara's group, too, and kind of how they're going to do with inside the parks, I mean, there's a lot of pieces, but actually Urbana has more pieces of the Green Loop on the implementation table than, say, the Park District does, because we have these long linear pieces in between.
Yep.
And then basically these others down the way are other, future items. So this is what I was referring to, page 299. So I want to get into the weeds with that. And then the rest of the document talks about implementation. Now, this first one here is the 0 to 5 year city project network. So we'll look at that. I will say that most of these are also mirror the capital, 5-year capital improvement plan. That's how some of these got in there with
Yep.
Gabe, meaning that we're fiscally constrained the way that we operate the plan. Meaning that if we have $100, we don't put projects in there for 105. We only put it for 100. We used to, at one point in the past, we would show a deficit because there's an overwhelming number of projects, but we found that it's best to actually just show what we can only do within the money allotment that we have. So we'll look at a lot of these 0 to 5s, and as of note, Bradley's on there up here. The MCOR project, that's where a lot of our city funding is going at this point. That's a big, huge bicycle type project. So that's another big component there with that. And then we have other pieces, throughout. The side paths, the green dash, those are always a challenge because they're quite expensive to implement. Of note, up here at Broadway near Crystal Lake, we've already built some of it with the Park District. They actually funded it. We did the engineering. But we've got gap pieces from there down to Country Club. That's a challenge. Plus, the Park District with their ITEP will be looking at from Park Street, which is near Jimmy John's, up to at least the Saline in their study. They'll turn the corner and go along Park down to Carl.
Yep.
That will be built. The other part is at least a study part.
Okay.
The challenge is getting across the Saline because
You need a
that may
bridge.
require another bridge. But so staff, we'll look at this, the 0 to 5. When you get out into this 0 or 6 to 11, these would be that if we got the 0 to 5 done, this is where we'd look next. Which is important. I mean, it's actually kind of our beacon that we're looking at into the future. After that, the plus 11 is, for lack of a better term, I'll call it Dreamland. That would be where, I don't know if we'll get there for a while. But it's good to know what's out there in the future within that plus 11-year period. But as you can see, the total cost of implementation is over $3.7 million. So.
Craig, can you speak a little bit about the capital improvement plan process? You talked about, I guess you'd have a 5-year plan, and then how do you decide what projects get into that plan, and who prioritizes those, and how much money goes towards cycling infrastructure versus other improvement projects?
Okay, so we use for roadway / bicycling, we use 3 different types of funds. Actually 4. We have basically a state motor fuel tax that we get an allotment. That's about $1 million. That's been flatlined that way for the last 10, 15 years. Meaning we're not getting any more money than what we got, say, 10 or 15 years ago. So that's about $1 million annually we get there. We get about 800 and some thousand for the local gas tax. Okay, and then we get out of what we call a capital removal and replacement fund. We get about 600 some thousand annually there. So those are our 3 core. So that's that's 2.4 million. That's what we get per year, which is really not much. It sounds like a lot, but it's not much relative to 140 miles of street that we have to keep up. The 4th component is TIF money. Sometimes if a project falls within a TIF boundary, TIF money would be used for that. An example would be downtown on Main. That was or parts of Broadway near the Boneyard was TIF. That was a TIF project. Those are what I would call bonus monies. We don't actually actively put, because those are really on they have a lot more criteria, a lot more scrutiny to, because really it's TIF's competing against other infrastructure, other projects like development projects and things like that. So if we can get TIF money, we'll do that, but typically we don't count that money. And then of course there's grants that we try to go for too. Now how we prioritize, I will tell you, I'll give you a little background. We have basically a street ratings method of doing the streets. Now this year, right now, this is a pretty basic type of spreadsheet, windshield type method. We're actually looking to move to a more sophisticated pavement management model method. But within this, what we do is we rate the streets based upon a set of criteria. And we rate them on surface, foundation, and drainage conditions. So those are the three components. And then we also have the amount of volume. So volume is a player in this, as well as if it has a bus route or a bike facility. So what those come into play is it's what I call a tipping way of doing it, meaning that if you have two roads that come up with the same rating, but one has an on-street bike facility planned for it, that road's going to win and be a higher priority than the other one. Same thing if it's got a bus route on it, it's going to be a higher priority. So if all things are equal, the one that has the bike facility or the bus route gets the highest priority.
And is traffic volume cars or pedestrians?
It's cars.
It's cars.
It's cars.
Okay. And then
So with that,
Okay.
it's based upon like a three. Here, I'll go back to the legend. So this is the legend sheet that's in the CIP. But as you go down here, this is an ADT threshold. So basically, these are local volume roads, and it's kind of an inverse rating, meaning that the more points that you get, the better, the least chance you're going to get a road improvement. The smaller the number of points, then you're going to rise to the top. And I'll go back to the other sheet and show you. So this is like a local road, and then you have basically what we would term almost like a collector type road, and then you start getting up a little bit. Like these are our arterial type roads, like a Lincoln Avenue, an ADT there anywhere from say 7 to 15 to 20,000 ADT. Okay. And then again, if it has any on-road facilities for bicycles, or if it doesn't have any, then it gets 1 point. Okay.
So it's like, gets a point taken off in a way.
Yeah.
You know, it's a demerit.
Yeah, yeah. But if you go back to here, the way this comes into play is, so we basically, this is the worst set of streets. This was based upon the 2015 ratings. So our number one street on this list, so you can see these grouped, this is 11s, 12s, 13s, was Broadway from Park to north of Stebbins. That was that section that was the brick piece that was falling apart. So this is somewhat of a model of what you would call a worst first, which is actually something that we're trying to move away from, because what happens with a worst first is you put all of your money into something that you're fixing it all the time. You're never being able to maintain the other streets
Upgrade.
back, upgrade. So that is where us in Public Works come into play. We may allocate a chunk, the vast majority, to these type of streets, but then we also allocate others to pavement maintenance. So we don't neglect that, okay? But as far as our reconstructions, we do look at these as the main one. So the next one was Green right to west of Goodwin. That was one that jumped up. I mean, it's in fairly bad shape. It's even worse now than it was before. And then the other one is Springfield, Lincoln to Kohler. So the way that I'll do it is I'll take these out, and I actually go through and I'll take a map and I'll highlight, and then I have to look at and balance. Basically, if you're in an area, but let's say like in this case, Springfield Avenue, which is on the horizon here in 2 years, Lincoln next to it is also on there down the way. So you start to balance out, meaning you have to do things upon an economy of scale. You have to hit work while you're there. You don't want to just, do that street, go back and do 3 other streets, and then come back to another street that's right next to it. You
I
want to
would like to
bundle.
thank you for doing that. I cannot tell you, I've lived in previous cities where it is just
Great.
such a waste of money. Yeah, you just see them moving all over the place.
So we try to bundle if we can. So that's kind of just the overall network. Now what we do within Public Works is, like, I manage the system. I'll meet with my Public Works director. We'll also get feedback from CDE. We try to figure out what are these hot button projects too. And then we'll also come to city council with our recommendations, you know. Take something like the MCOR project, though. I will tell you that it's a great project, but it does focus a lot of our resources. So that means that it means that things get delayed, and we've actually had to delay projects as a result of that project. And that's the same thing in Champaign. They're doing the same thing there, and too. So that's kind of just a broad overview of how these things are managed. I actually have a bunch of spreadsheets that I manage from. And then we also, like for the local streets, we'll break them down into neighborhood groups. So we try to do things within a neighborhood. The challenge on the local side is the American Disabilities Act because of all the requirements of that. And when we do certain types of treatments, we have to do handicap ramps. And that's a good thing, it's costly as well. So that's kind of the basis here. So
Yeah, that was my next question, was sidewalks. Do you have any budget for sidewalks? Because I was hearing handicap ramps.
Yeah, so we have this money, and that's kind of for the roadway. Now, of that 600,000 that's set aside for the capital, I mean, the replacement fund, that portions of that get allocated towards sidewalks. So there's a small amount on that. Let's go to one of those just so I can show you the cash flow. So this is in these are our programs, but I'm going to go down and skip down to what we call A09. So within this, this is our allotment annually is basically $55,000 for bicycles, signing, and pavement working, and that is basically what we use for signage and
Striping.
Now what we'll do is we've actually been pooling some of that money because we've been trying to keep up on our striping. We do it annually, but we also pool some of it, which then pays for studies, or in our case here, we've got some to actually do some implementation of the wayfinding plan. So we do have to use it sort of, we call it rebudgeting or encumbering, but we have to use it like a savings account. We don't go into debt. Only project that we did go into debt was the infamous Windsor Road project. So
We're going to talk about that.
the master plan, you can see there's actually this is only the 5-year plan, and then previous years, these are the allotments for the master plan. There's actually a $38,000 one that was before that, so it was like $48,000 total is what it ended up coming out to be. So when you ask about sidewalks, we allocate about $100,000 annually for sidewalks. We also allocate about 54 brick sidewalk and ramps. A lot of this money, though, is used on a complaint-by-complaint basis. We have an obligation through the American Disabilities Act and a liability that if there's a complaint that we have to then channel our resources. But like, we have, basically, there's limited funding. And then we have the master plan in here. So really, these are our key components here that we have at this time. And then when you look at roadways, like I'll give you a basis. This is all broke down, but like say asphalt, just for pavement maintenance, there's only 50,000 budgeted versus the 100,000 for the sidewalk. But what we do is we actually collectively put that in a pot and then manage from the pot. We may have times when we do more than, maybe it's all going to a because we have to bundle this money together. We don't have enough. Like a $95,000 concrete sounds a lot, but it won't get you much. It won't get you much at all.
No, it's not.
And do you find, I just out of plain curiosity, it's a material question, how are those 100-year-old bricks holding up compared to the other stuff you're doing?
So brick pavements for the most part are maintenance free for the most part, but when they fail, they fail quickly when they go.
Oh, interesting.
And they become a really serious concern. That's what we had on Broadway. They actually became, they sort of like unzipped like this with the loading, and then that's a real problem. And all of a sudden now we're.
But the big problem with them is that they freeze thaw faster than concrete, and they are a nightmare for bicyclists and pedestrians when they are wet.
They're slippery.
Or it's freezing. They are a disaster. And I liked brick a lot when I was in the South. Since I've moved up here, I hate brick.
Right.
I think it's horrible, and I personally do not think we should have brick sidewalks. But that was, I was here when that discussion went through, and it was an extremely long, loud, and bloody conversation, and no one wants to reopen that.
So like brick sidewalks per ordinance, they cannot be removed unless the property owner gives the okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you could actually have a patchwork, you could have,
Yes,
you know,
which is ridiculous.
5 homes on it, and you could actually go brick, concrete, brick, concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with any brick street, they cannot be removed without council approval.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go to council to, and we did that on Broadway, and
Mm-hmm.
we were able to show that there was a cost component to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now, in the Woona area though, we are fully committed to keeping those.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have some of this money pooled to do a maintenance project where we can start going in and patching, trying to keep up
Fixing them.
ahead of it. Because for the most part, they are maintenance free.
And there's not much traffic on those streets. Broadway had a lot
Yeah,
of traffic.
yeah. Now, we'll take this, we also allocate money for pavement striping. So it's not, you know, the cost on, we kind of bundle things together with the striping for the bike lanes and the road together, and then we'll kind of pull from different funds for that, you know, in there. But this kind of gives you just an overview, but yeah, when I say 55,000, that's the allotment that we have. So it's not like it's 55 and then we pool it for 2 years and we go, and we're already using it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of, you know, saving the remainder. But if we have a special project, then we have to go and get additional funding for that. So
When is your budget, I'm guessing you go on the fiscal year,
We do.
is when you start planning
So,
to,
yeah, the fiscal year starts July 1 through the end of June. Okay, so right now we're in the middle of the fiscal year. Our budget season is just started. So we'll actually start our process up basically through spring. We usually take to city council in May is what we do at that point. So we'll have a numerous amount of internal meetings
Yep.
to go through all of this. You know, in the end, we have only a small amount of money, really. I mean, the analogy I use is that we've got, you know, I got $100 to $1,000 problem every year, so it's just, you know, it's not like we have a lot of variety. So we try to do the best we can. We do try to get grants when we can. The issue sometimes on grants is there's an allocation
There's a
match, a soft match, or a match, not a hard match, and then that's another commitment.
how often does the council, once you get to the council with a recommended budget, do they reprioritize some things that staff recommended?
Well, it can happen. I mean, anything can happen. The council and the mayor make the ultimate decision.
Yeah.
Usually we'll, we usually, as we've been going through it, council, we've tried to keep them abreast of every impact. So when we go to, like, we had to go for MCOR to, you know, we let them know that, well, this also has a ripple effect throughout. I would say we try to do a good enough job that they don't have to reallocate, but I can tell you that anything can happen. You know, and we would just have to adjust on that.
Have you ever presented the budget, I mean, not maybe after council approved it, and just highlighted the infrastructure projects that were cycling related to the BPAC in the past?
No, you know, no, and I would say the answer to that, the reason is because it's actually become so commonplace that, in all honesty, staff doesn't view it as this is a bicycle project or this is a road project or a car project. We actually view it as it's just all rolled into one. So we don't, you know, and I would say most of our funding though has been going towards, so what I'm getting at is when we go to implement a project, like say the Bradley bike lanes as an example, we went out a year or two in advance and we patched the road. So we're always looking, and if we can resurface a project, then we'll do the bike lanes. So we're not, what I'm getting at is I've been asked by one particular council member, you know, the cost and this was actually came up with the implementation of the bike plan. And what my answer is that in reality, all we're doing is reallocating space. As long as we're not building a multi-use path, we're just reallocating space, meaning we were still gonna have to resurface that road. And it's really not that much more for just the stripes.
Well, I guess I was wondering if RPC did any work when they identified the 0 to 5 year projects and the 6 to 11 year projects, you know, you should be able to get some numbers for those 0 to 5 projects, and then just do the math about whether you'd be able to accomplish them all, if it's unrealistic to get, you know, you're only going to be able to get 75% of them, or.
Well, I would say it's, well, okay, the 0 to 5 come from the CIP.
Oh, so those are already in the.
They are alignment when we go through that process. The 6 to 11 are, yeah, well.
So
Let me show you something, because I think if we go back, I'll close a few windows and I'll just show you within this document. So let's go down to because they have we'll look at
It's got that information in
yeah.
there to a degree.
Right. Can't remember what.
'Cause they did cost estimates. Yeah, it's all there. It's just an overwhelming matrix. It is. It's huge.
So 0 to 5 years. This is the 0 to 5 years, and this is the total cost that they're anticipating is 3.9 million for the.
Craig, on let's see, page 312 is where it starts it on, or it's the implementation matrix by responsible agency. So I think that's
Right. And but
that one we can look at all.
312.
Yeah.
312, yeah. That
But what you're
just breaks
saying
them out by.
is that that $39 million is not money allocated specifically to bicycling, but is already part of
Well, some of
other
it, yeah.
projects.
Yeah, so-
Yeah.
So we're at 312.
Yeah. So these are all the Urbana.
Right. So like 0 to 5, there's 211,000.
Yeah.
So if you look at that,
Yeah, you'd like to be able to see it better.
Yeah, those are doable.
yeah. So like Bradley Avenue bike lanes, let's
Yeah.
go back, was linking to the west city limits is 91,000. But I will tell you that, so we spent 300 to 500,000 on patching. And then the bike lanes themselves will probably only cost, say, 20 to 30. So these are numbers, but these are just sort of placeholder numbers. We actually go through an engineering analysis to come up. So now we were going to patch the road anyway,
Yeah.
but it actually became a priority because of the bike. It was part of the bike.
Yeah.
So that helps. This plan helps me allocate or point me in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this doesn't go on the shelf. We use it, actively use it all the time. And the other thing I tell people is where bicyclists go, that's where cars want to go too. I mean, I know that we want to separate sometimes, but that's usually it's the same space. We're just allocating it.
Plus, the bicyclists are putting wear and tear on the
Well,
road,
that
so the
was-
more people who bicycle, the less.
Well, this was my next
Repairing
question
that.
is have you seen, it's like, it's the same as the brick question. Is have you seen if there is an increase in bike use? Like, let's say, because we're hoping for a 5% increase of load share or something. Like, you know, it'd be great if we can somehow, I don't know if it's possible to
Well,
track, like,
I was going to get to that.
increase, decrease, yeah, because I know buses, you know, anyway, yeah, and, you know, or, I was talking with a fireman about them having smaller trucks, and the smaller trucks, for a variety of reasons, are better for spaces. For them, it's hard, because they have a lot of gear, but, you know, but anyway, those are my questions.
Yeah, I
We
was
haven't
gonna get
been
to
able
that.
to do very many pre and post studies. MCOR would be one that because
Yes.
of the grant, we had to do a lot
Oh,
of pre-studies.
nice.
Yes.
Great.
So we actually
Oh,
did
that's
counts.
great.
And
We
we're
got
gonna have-
data
we're gonna
for that.
we counted every single intersection. We got video at every intersection. We'll have posts there. But I will tell you anecdotally, what
anecdotally,
I've
yeah.
seen is usually you build it and they come.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's
But
what I,
do you see the less wear and tear on the roads?
no.
Not yet. I don't.
Yeah. So
I'm just curious.
roads,
I'm just, you know,
roads,
more-
it's not just loading. Loading comes into play when you have a weaker pavement, but it's also just
Time.
time, it ages
Yeah. Yeah.
too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, it's got that sun shining on it.
And the freezing and the
freezing
thaw and
thaw,
all the.
freezing thaw.
Yeah.
Mrs.
But it also we have not had to expand or improve
Yes.
a number of locations
Yes.
because our
The traffic
congestion levels are not so high because there's
Yes.
so many people using other modes.
And I tell people too, it's really a quality of life, like a quality of Urbana issue.
That too.
With all of the balancing of the modes, you actually get a better quality of life, I think, within the city.
Definitely do.
Well, that since we went in that direction, I would like for us to talk about before and after studies, and if we don't have money to do the electronic counts, talk about where it's critical for us to have that, and do in-person counts, and if we need to train people to assist with that. Many, if perhaps most communities do use a lot of volunteers to do traffic counts. RPC staff is very opposed to that. They want professionally trained people using specific devices. I am of the persuasion that data that has some viability is better than having no data. And so I think it's worth us having that conversation. And the thing I wanted to do was to try and take the league requirements for becoming platinum and somehow measure our progress toward those goals as we implement these things so that we can see how we're doing. They've got these outcomes in here, 12% people riding, crashes per 10,000 daily commuter. They've got the crash rates and fatality rates. Those are the outcome measures. But then we've got the, things like they say, on enforcement, having bicycle-friendly laws, ordinances in place, and it should be very good. And it doesn't on this chart say, well, what does that mean? So we have to try and drill down to find out what are they measuring there. And we can kind of do that from the way we fill out that enormously long application that we do, is we can pull it out of there.
Well, what I like about this is we'd be telling a narrative, and we could share the narrative with other people, and we have a shared language, versus now we're all like, it's just nice to bike here. Versus like,
Right.
we're moving towards platinum, we want platinum, platinum's a community goal, this is what our community wants.
And what does it mean? We need laws.
Right, this is what we
and-
need, like the next thing
So
that we're
he's got
trying
a
to get.
performance measures tracking sheet here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our consultant that set this up for us, and provided it to Kevin and I, and it's based upon the goals, so these sync up with the master plan. So it's using the SMART acronym, which was what
Yeah,
specific,
and
measurable,
happily they were
attainable.
very focused on
Yeah.
that, and that was great.
Yeah, so it's got the objective, the performance measure, the lead, so it's
Agency,
identified, like this is all the ones that I would be
Yeah.
involved in. The potential sources, the best time to collect data, and then it's got these years out here, so there's our horizon 2021. So, I went through them, and Kevin's went through them, and we're digesting them more, but I'm marking them up, and then I'm asking questions too.
Oh, good.
And one of them, Cynthia, is on the second goal here. Is a, what is the second one? Is a PAV study right here. So that's that pedestrian, what was PAVs?
Pedestrian and bicycle or bicyclist, I don't know,
Survey. So that's
Yes.
basically that.
Yeah.
So one question I have is funding and cost. That's my concern. On that.
Absolutely.
But as I note though too, it is planning that's handling the lead, so that's really Kevin.
But before we had any data, before we had any data, I did a call for volunteers and we trained people using the national data count stuff, and I gave them the forms, and we had a lot of people volunteer, and they went out and stood and counted people. And they all showed up, and we did a
You can do it on
training.
your smartphone now.
And
you
yeah,
just
now
slide
there's
your
smartphones.
smartphone and
Yeah,
just
now we
there's actual
yeah
apps,
now
and
we've
you just
got
go, boop, boop.
much better technology, because
Oh my
this
gosh.
was like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
or
to
more.
add it up from
I remember
piece of
seeing
paper.
them.
Yeah, but I'm saying that people were very interested and willing, if if that is something that we need to consider as a way for collecting the data.
I think that could be viable. I think if maybe me and Kevin and maybe Gabe talk about it, at least initial plan, and then sit down again. And because one thing with counting, like what we do, is you want to know what you have to measure ahead of time. Because sometimes you can go through the motions and you collect something and you go, well, that doesn't help me.
Yeah, no, we want to, we have to have volunteers collect only, you know, stuff that we really can use.
You truly should talk to a man named James Whitaker at the campus main library, Scholarly Commons. He's been helping us with the campus bicycle census, and it's incredible the amount of information that he's collected. It's only really a shame that it's not as public as it really should be. But he's working on that, and he's working with all sorts of licensing hoops and gadgets and gizmos and everything. But it's incredible, this volunteer census. That really nobody had the resources to take complete leadership over. James has done amazing GIS work with this, so quite incredible.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting? What could James help with?
Or helping with smartphone technology and ArcGIS and having volunteers do counts.
To use and, and how to code the data in. Because I mean, once you have the data, then what do you do with it? You've got to have it coded in, and so we don't want to collect it in a way that we're asking someone to go sit down and manually enter all the data on a computer. That takes enormous amount of time and introduces a whole nother error system in that we really don't want.
So
we can avoid it.
We have these nice goal tracking.
Yeah, that's
you know,
nice.
within here too. You know, they broke down. You know, the
Places
different
that people want to get to.
or problems that need to be
Challenges,
addressed or challenges. You know, and you know, like this one here, I've got. I mean, that was one that we just talked about last time at the last commission meeting. So I'll just go through it real quick. But I mean, there's a lot of these goals.
Yep.
And a lot of.
Yep.
I mean, when I first opened, I was a little bit overwhelmed, but
Well, we have
I
to
got through it.
prioritize
I got through
based, you know, on something, you know, what are the priorities, and sometimes our priorities will change based on things that happen.
yeah, there are some. Police have a couple goals in here too. You know.
Well, and education is one of the things that we really need to think about how to do, and because I'm working on a bike plan in Iowa City, and the law enforcement there is doing some really amazing stuff. They do rides with kids at school and some really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Our police department has just been so shorthanded, and I personally am deeply offended by the people who say we don't need more police, because they have not been able to engage with our programming in the last 2 years because there are not enough officers. And that is a real disadvantage for everybody in the community. We really need those officers, and they can't do the work that we need done that is preventative work in engaging the community in a variety of fronts. So, you know, I've written to the city council about that and told them, you know, we really need them for our bike education and pedestrian education program, and working with the kids. It's huge, and I would encourage you all to contemplate your rep, talking to your rep about whether you feel like that's a good investment on the part of the community. But, you know, they're a player that we need at the table.
I can speak highly of the bike police in Chicago, actually, and just it was the fact that they weren't in cars and they were moving around very quickly, and you could talk to them, and they were very approachable. And we don't have that vast of a city. I mean, it's quite bikeable. They can move through the city quite quickly on a bike.
They have some on campus that patrol on bike, and all of our officers are trained through the program that they have, but I don't think we have enough officers to have people doing bike patrol as a component of our program.
And I can always add the other thing I would just like to say is one thing, and is when I was in Paris years and years ago, I'll never forget seeing police officers rollerblading with a group of people, and it really
that is not happening anymore.
Right, it doesn't, but it really changes.
I was there last summer.
Really, but it really changes the dynamic. I have a brother who's a police
That would
officer.
be great.
So I'm I'm pretty
they were all
interested.
standing around with machine guns at the popular tourist attractions.
But it just changes the dynamics of like what
The whole
what
culture.
their job is and
Yeah.
how they're interacting with people and how people perceive them.
Yeah,
If they are
absolutely.
only have time to drive around in cars, people perceive them
Responding to
differently.
emergencies.
Yeah, they're
Yep.
perceived differently than if they can interact with people and be
Yes,
more present.
absolutely.
So that's just all.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm advocating for, and that's what we need them for with our implementation of the plan.
So we use these as our guiding, I mean, the goals are in there for a reason to follow that. Now, not every project that you see though has, like we have some Lincoln Avenue resurfacing. I mean, that's arguably our most important road. It's our only north-south road that goes all the way through the whole city.
Yeah.
So we have
That's
some
true.
projects on that, but like say Lincoln from Green up to University, one of the things that we will try to tackle is the Lincoln and Maine or Lincoln and Stoughton crossing. So we're not looking at putting bike lanes on Lincoln, but we are looking at addressing intersection components.
Yeah, because
So
getting
we'll do
across
that.
is a big problem.
Yeah, and that's also highlighted in all this stuff too. So
Okay.
I mean, does
So
that help?
and you can come back to us later down the road, and
Yeah.
we can get more deeply into the weeds as to specifics. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I think that's great. I think I just didn't want us to lose momentum now that we passed the plan. I thought we ought to talk about implementation.
I would say staff, we were already building before. We were just waiting for the thing to get approved. So.
Yeah.
We appreciate
And
that.
we all were.
Yep.
And, I was thinking about that matrix too, that maybe something simpler with the high priority stuff at some point would be helpful to have. And then somehow, telling us how we're progressing towards our platinum goal would be great. So, thank you.
To comment on the Kickapoo Rail Trail, as Craig mentioned, we've been talking about the feasibility study, and the Park District, the city, RPC, CCFPD are all meeting next week, so I hope that
Oh,
by
good.
next BPAC meeting we'll have some more information.
Yeah, we were talking, I was at CCB steering committee meeting yesterday. Yesterday was Monday. Right?
Yeah.
You're on it.
I'm totally with you.
And yeah, I've almost missed this week, but they were talking about they are planning on a ribbon cutting for July 15th,
Oh my god.
and it may be done before that, but the contractor says the 15th, and so they can't
Yeah.
really schedule it before that. And they want to invite a bunch of dignitaries, elected officials. I mean, it's really we should invite Congressman Davis and all kinds of people to come and bike with us, and they want to bike from St. Joe into town. So there's a big discussion about biking to the ribbon cutting and ride. And so where do we meet and how do we get there? And how do we get across High Cross Road? Because the state came and improved the intersection for us and made it much harder for
It is a
us to
disaster.
get bicyclists across.
What if you parked at Walmart parking lot?
It's freaking scary to drive through.
Yeah, but then you
They
have
were
to make a
actually,
left
well, they were
turn
talking
to
about
go
doing it
and-
on the other side, and I was
right.
trying to visualize where, Charlie had an idea about crossing, which I didn't quite understand, where he was
Can
suggesting
we
we
just have a
have people
police
cross.
car in front and a police car
High
in
Cross
back?
Road for
and
the
a
ride,
pile of
but-
cyclists?
Are you going east though?
Not if you start at Walmart, but yeah,
Are you going
yeah.
east or west?
Well, this would be people who want to ride out to where we're gonna do the ribbon cutting,
So
and
you
then
need
the
somewhere
official
in Urbana.
ride is in St. Joe to back into town,
Oh.
into Urbana. But there are a bunch of people who want to bike there. They don't want to drive out to St. Joe and bike back and forth. They want to start here and bike
Wait,
back
to
into
be
town.
clear, the trail is the July 15th section, the section that will be done by July 15th.
From here to St. Joe.
That's what I'm trying. Okay.
Yeah, and they said that they are making plans for extending, they're working on funding and moving toward getting it to the county line. But Vermilion County's bogged down because of their funding being tied up due to our crazy state budget crisis and not being able to do anything. And they were talking about encouraging them to start looking for funding to go from the county line to what was the name of the town, Audrey? The Oakwood. Oakwood.
Need a
So,
curriculum.
because that would really get people into Vermilion County much closer to the lake, and the jewel in the crown for our trail will be the bridge when we get it done. But of course, that's where all the money and time comes in that they are currently frozen up on. So that was the update there.
Can we get like a funicular to go across the intersection?
But I was saying, if you parked in this parking lot here,
Right.
there's a connection now where the arrow is.
Oh, right, yeah,
that
no.
goes up, and then it
Yep.
gets next to the trail.
Right, and then you're on the trail.
You're on the trail. So as you see too, that's part of the feasibility study that
Yep.
Kara's talking about.
where-
Is that, so,
Where's Riggs? Because there's side passes.
Oh,
Riggs is
South.
south, quite a
Way
bit
down
south.
here.
so the issue is getting.
That was
He
my
talks like
path.
she doesn't know where it is.
She does, but she's only come there from the other direction.
So the KRT will end here at Main Street. It's getting from here down to here.
Yeah.
The Park District wants to
I
wants to put
don't
Right.
like
trailer. So one of the study
I'm not
areas.
banging on that street, no way.
Oh, I bicycle on Main Street all the time.
I rode it,
Yeah,
it's not
but
too
it's
bad,
still-
it's a little bit hairy right here.
Area.
Comparing it to a trail is like
Yeah.
night and day.
That's
That's,
Well,
what I was
yes,
thinking. I'd go to
absolutely.
Riggs and then bike up the side over to the thing. No,
Yeah.
that's not gonna get me.
There's nothing there yet. You can't do it
Yeah.
There's a-
On High Cross.
And that won't really come about until there's.
until the development there, and then they will have to put in the trail. We'll have that multi-use trail will go.
You go over to Cottonwood instead
Yeah.
and just start over there.
Right
Like
now, what
1
I
mile
would
over.
do is go, I would
Confused,
get on,
so.
Pfeiffer Road and head south and go
Yeah.
through Stone Creek
Right.
and stuff like that. If I were trying to get to Riggs, I wouldn't try to.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because that's how I was thinking of getting. That's how I was thinking of getting to
It's a
Walmart
very
was-
circuitous way to get to Riggs
Right,
at this
extra.
point, but your only other option is to ride on the shoulder
It's safe and chill.
of High Cross Road, which, is
No.
where we had one of our fatalities
Right.
from a
Right.
goofball running off the road and hitting the cyclist.
That was written up in the Chicago Reader this past week.
So is there any other questions in with the implementation and timeline?
No, I think we're ready to move on to our annual report.
Okay.
Hey, Charlie, gosh, you guys are done?
Yeah,
You beat us?
yes.
Oh, my God.
I was chair. I moved this.
So within, last year we modified our bylaws and our rules and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And within there, there was this section right here.
Yep.
The commission shall render an annual report to the mayor and city council in February, which includes these following.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So we're at that point now
Mhm.
where I think we need to discuss how this will take place. I don't foresee this being a staff report. This is actually from the commission, really with the chair lead. Okay, that was the intent. So, really summarizing the action, maybe making some budget suggestions and future goals and things like that. My suggestion is it being it's really, we've never done one before, I don't think,
no.
is not to overly complicate it, make it fairly
Team-
straightforward.
Right.
And
I
it's
think,
straight
the
to the
purpose
point.
is, we are doing things, we are engaged, here's the evidence.
You just look through the 12 meeting notes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we need to present that,
yeah.
to the council, and really that's the only time that
And
EPAC
get them
can
excited
go and
about it.
actually make a statement, so to speak, about,
How wonderful we are.
yeah, or bicycle.
Yeah, one thing
How wonderful
is
we are.
Pedestrian.
Yeah, yeah.
And one thing I was thinking about too is that one thing that would be really nice is if in the future, in our meeting notes, we had summary of actions accomplished, any budgetary
Yeah, I think
related
like a
issues.
way to
so
tag
that,
it.
Yeah, so that we have, and then it'll be a lot easier for us to pull that out
That's a
next
great
year.
idea.
And I don't know about future goals. I mean, I think that would be difficult to pull out of the notes, but I think the first two we could maybe include sort of a summary for our meeting minutes. So, how to accomplish this and get it done. I guess one of the things we could do is have people take, so many
Yeah, it's like I could look at 3 months.
Yeah, look at 3 months and come back with that information, and then we could compile it.
And I would think, I mean, we have February in there, but it could be March or whatever, just as long as we get it at some point to council.
So, which months do people want? We can do quarterly, but minute review, and you can come back, send that to me. So, who wants to do January, February, March?
I'll do the next 3.
I'll do January through March.
Okay,
I'll do the next one.
and then April, May, and June is Lily.
I can do the next ones.
Okay. July, August, September, and
I can do October, November, December.
okay, October through December would be Jeff.
And then
What-
Cynthia, I can help make it pretty.
Now, would it be helpful though from staff, like me and Kevin, I know you guys are gonna go through that, but like summarize, I know we talked about the Bradley bike lanes, maybe we just do independently.
That would be
Send
great.
it, and then
And
that
just
way you
send it
can
out.
see,
Yes,
sync
that'd be
out.
great.
Absolutely,
That'd be
especially the
fantastic.
budget part of it would be helpful, because we may have talked about it, but,
Well, we'll summarize what we came to,
okay.
what staff brought to the
Okay.
commission.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic because that'll also help us guide as to because we're going to sift through all of it and then decide what's important and what's not important.
Could we include the chart that we made? What would make Urbana biking and walking awesome?
For future goals.
Future, yeah, the awesome
The one
chart.
that we did
Power sucks.
with the,
Yeah,
Brandon.
yeah.
it's in the minutes.
It's in the minutes.
Yeah, that would have
Make things
been,
awesome.
gosh, I don't remember which month that was we did it last year.
It was
That would be
May.
city
Oh,
future
that
goals.
was the very first one. That was, I don't know, it'll be in the minutes. We'll
Yeah,
figure it
that
out.
would be.
I
is
seem
gonna
to,
take
for
us-
some reason, May sticks in my mind, but
Okay, okay.
So with budget suggestions, do you have any thoughts on that then? I mean, other than give us more money.
right. But it's like this is what
Well,
we
Fund the
But
bike plan.
to me, it would be prioritizing to city council what would be, what VPAC views as the most important thing.
Well, one of the things I think is really important is to have a staff person that
that's
is
right.
responsible for this. And so if you have any thoughts about budget for that, that would be very
And I
helpful.
can tell you, people were very confused at the meeting when that was brought up. That sort of really surprised me, when people were like, why would you need a staff person to be in charge of this? And it seemed though that city council's response was just sort of like, why? And yet which it was to me, it was fascinating, because I was like, well, of course you need somebody in charge, because if no one's in charge,
How does it get
Nothing
done?
gets done.
nothing gets done. Yeah, so I was kind of just surprised about that response. So I think that's something. I think that is that's very smart.
Well,
to-
it's particularly
Talk about
crucial
why.
for our education, encouragement, and
There needs to be a
issues.
point person.
Because our staff, I mean, Public Works, of course, is going to be dealing with the infrastructure part, but when it comes down to coordinating those events and doing all those things, like right now, that's why Bike Month is on here, is because we don't have anybody to do it.
and
And
that
it also
may be
changes-
the
it
most
changes the
important part of
dialogue.
this.
But it changes the dialogue in the city. If it's coming from the city and it's not coming from these Prairie Cycle
Special
Clubs or
interest.
coming from the university,
Yeah.
it's like, if it's coming from the city that we think Bike Month is important, we think mode share is important, like if we are saying it as a city, this is important, versus just some cycling groups and
And it-
some,
and
you know,
it's-
like that's silly.
Bicycling being more than infrastructure, being events
Exactly.
and culture.
So
And that was
can-
my recommendation, that we do not recommend infrastructure budgeting, only because
That's
staff,
already-
we can do that, but
It's kinda
it's
there.
harder for staff, to be honest with you, to recommend this additional staff person or funding for maybe some of the, there could be some suggestion to fund some of the traffic counting, or the head counting, or anything else. We can do some of those things, but the staff person that we talk about, or the sharing of that cost, that's harder.
At the very least, what I would like to see is that we recommend that there be a part-time or an intern position funded that's job is to help with
Promoting.
those non-infrastructure items in our plan that we need staff support to accomplish, of which there are many.
Oh, so that would be the budget suggestion, would be
Yes.
allocate more staff time towards the,
Well, I think we need somebody whose job it is to do it. I don't want them, right now we've got Kevin doing this and Craig doing
That's what Craig-
that.
that's
We're
what Craig
doing
said,
this
yeah,
and
Craig
they're
said-
doing that.
yeah.
and No
Stretches
one's in
everybody.
charge.
I
Well,
guess,
that's what Craig said. He goes, I got all sorts of staff members doing all
Yeah.
sorts of little bits and bobbles here and there, and it's just it's just not the right approach.
I think also I was just gonna mention that to Craig's point about, not touching the budget in the sense that the CIP already identifies the 5-year short-term projects that are
Right.
identified in the bike plan, so there's really
Right.
not much to change in that regard.
Exactly.
But no, I think if I don't know if it'd be appropriate to take a vote on a recommendation to City Council as the commission, if we wanted to make a recommendation that they allocate more staff time. I mean, I don't know, from a staff level, do you guys do like service plans, or how does council monitor what you guys are working on?
Well,
throughout the
we
year?
do work plans
Okay.
annually, but they're mainly within the internal controls of Public Works.
Right, so I would imagine the council sets council goals, and then the work plans align with the council
That's
goals.
That's right.
So,
But the monitoring of staff use is done from the department and division heads.
But I think we could recommend that we hire
At least
a
an
part-time
intern.
or an intern to.
I've been quiet on this for far too long. As the active transportation coordinator, you really should have someone here to
Full-time.
help coordinate a lot of these efforts.
No, full time.
Yes.
There's got to be someone going in
Well, we're not gonna
between,
get that.
getting all the voices in the right
That's what you
room.
ask for.
well, doesn't the
It's not just more staff time; it's a position.
Cyclists in their recommendation for
Yes.
platinum, they also recommend having a full-time.
That is a high priority.
Yeah,
It's-
it's like one.
it's in
per
the- It's in the
plan.
20,000.
It's in the
Yeah,
So I
plan.
guess
in the
that could be
plan.
a budget suggestion as well.
Well, I think
And
we
you
could
guys
include
have-
in our recommendation, the league recommended the following,
Yeah.
Yes.
which would cost this much, and then say other options include. And
Yeah.
I mean, if we got an intern, I would be thrilled. But and often once you have an intern,
They
then
get
it can
used to it
turn
being
into
done,
a
right,
position.
right.
Because the other thing that they can also do is help work on grant applications for funding some of these activities.
and then it funds their
I
position.
spent a lot of time trying to get small grants to help with various things, including some funding for our snow removal program. And, it's really hard to find the time to put those together.
Well, we can get you, we can talk to finance and get
Okay.
maybe a cost for an intern, but if you would give me the parameters of what you're thinking.
Well, I
If you
think.
could just send me an email or something, that'd be good.
Yeah,
to
okay.
Think about it.
Yeah, well, I think we could say, this is what the league recommended, and here's the
Let's
budget
move towards it in
impact.
5 years
which
to have
would be
a full-time position.
Yeah.
We could say let's start
And-
with
and we
XYZ, and in
recommend
5 years it needs to be
that
a
we-
full time job.
Look at how to get
Get started
this
in that
goal.
direction.
We are growing the miles of bike paths by
Yeah.
this much. We're
Yeah.
doing this by this much. There has got to be a person. Who
Right, because
is-
it's more, and I think we can sort of have a theme that it's more than infrastructure,
It's in charge of implementing and helping programming through the bike plan, also the pedestrian plan.
the pedestrian. We're going to have a pedestrian plan. We're going to have
Any
a
ADA
wayfinding
transition plans that
And
you
all
have.
of
There's
those
gonna be the
require
green loop, there's gonna
communication
be-
with the public to explain
Right.
to them what it is.
And
Yeah.
getting people from the Kickapoo Trail to downtown Urbana is going to be a massive boon economically. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
and we need to have that
Somebody
voice
that-
heard all the time who's saying, no, this is,
This is
economically
important.
increasing biking and pedestrian use. I mean, if you just read who bought houses recently in the Champaign County area, it is people who are nearing retirement who are buying houses in this area. Those people want to live in bikeable, walkable communities. That is where they're looking to buy. We have got to do this. This isn't optional.
Can I
you know?
make one recommendation, just from a process standpoint? If we could get, I guess, we talked about these write-ups. Ideally, I guess in my mind, if we could have this report by the February meeting, and then send it on to City Council from there, but have something that we can review as a group I just,
February, right.
the
Oh,
wording on,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, for
these
sure.
are
No, we
budget
will
I think
suggestions.
that's what you were
we'll
thinking.
Yeah, and then make a recommendation that we move this on
And
the
we have
city
to
council.
vote on it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
it's likely we won't make the February meeting, in the end, because it just.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess, so in that regards, if we were to get these write-ups back to Cynthia within like 2 weeks, and then Cynthia could put together this report with all the language, and then
we could look at it.
redistribute it back to the BPAC members, and then at the February meeting, we can make a recommendation to send it to city council for in
Right.
March sometime.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable approach. yeah.
Okay.
I think it's important to set the tone, the first one, and then also keep the message, particularly the future goals, as simple and as clear and just a
Yep.
few key points.
Yep.
And also make them feel like they're part of it, and that they're part of
This
part
amazing
of what
growth.
we're doing, and we really appreciate
Their
their work
support
and how
and
they're
their
helping us.
enthusiasm
And
and, yeah.
yeah,
And I
because
think
we
we
need their help and we need their assistance, and they've been very. I mean, I saw when they approved the money for MCOR, I just about died. I mean, you had to come back and say, I need a ton more money, and they were all like,
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
you know,
Well,
I mean, and they
Well,
did,
it
and that's a
went-
big deal.
No, it went better than what we thought it would go. It
Don't
did.
say that out loud.
No, it did. But I think that goes to the community. I mean,
Right.
they support this project.
Yeah, they are a part of it, and they support us, and they want to know what they're doing, and they want to make sure that we are moving things along, that we're not just all, hanging out here. But it's, so I think that's just a part of it.
Yeah, and we've got really concrete information for the bicycle stuff because of the bicycle friendly community feedback report. We're going to be sort of flapping in the wind with the pedestrian stuff since we don't have a plan and we haven't applied to be recognized as a walkable community yet, but we could maybe take a look at that criteria and say, we know that these are things down the road that we're going to be looking at, but I don't think we're going to be able to come up with anything beyond our goal being we want to get the plan done and passed and apply to become a walkable community.
I mean, that's an,
Yeah.
I think that in itself is a,
Fairly ambitious for
right,
at this
ambitious
point.
and understandable. Like
Yeah,
this is,
that's
we
true.
want to be walkable. We don't even know what it is yet, but we want to go that direction.
Well, it's the next biggest mode after driving
Yep.
is
Walking.
walking.
And also
we have a lot of people walking to work and everywhere else.
Oh yeah, as they should. It's a very walkable. It's a lovely walkable community.
I usually only can't
Yeah.
get people to ride bikes because they want to walk instead.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's actually my number one.
See, I ride a
complaint.
bike because walking makes my feet hurt. So.
Yeah.
I
So,
have
so
bad
2 weeks
feet.
is at the end of,
Biggest
These-
hurdle.
is the end of this month.
January
So that's
31st.
perfect. So
Yeah.
just
For parking.
set that as a goal to
Okay.
get your get the information to
Yeah.
Cynthia.
And does
Okay.
that, Cynthia, would that give you enough time to put something together and then redistribute it back by the meeting in February?
I think so, and I can get my intern maybe to help a little bit too in putting it together. And Annie also volunteered, so.
Perfect. Three
What
more-
was that? Wait, what was it?
You'd have 3 more weeks and.
I'll make it pretty. Oh, I will definitely make it. I can definitely put together a pretty presentation.
So you'd have 3 weeks until the next meeting then to get that.
Okay.
Because the next meeting is the 21st.
But I will not be here in February for BPAC, so y'all can fight out your priorities. Sorry. I'll be in Arizona. Darn, I'll miss that.
So that would put us at,
Look at my calendar.
so probably the 13th, March 13th committee of the whole meeting, which means that the
March
final
13th.
report,
I gotta put that in the calendar.
everything would be ready for the packet by the 9th.
By March 9th.
Preferably March 9th or 8th.
And that also helps us then because we're early in the budgeting process as well. And
So by
that's
March 9th,
important.
we'd want the PDF of a PowerPoint presentation of what we're doing. Okay, I'll put that in my calendar.
Oh, so.
Now, that's
actually-
going to a committee. Now, we could go straight to council. I don't know. We'd have to talk, me and Kevin, with our
Okay, is
bosses.
that what you think is
If we go
best?
to council, that could be the 6th. Just straight to council and not go to a committee. And that could be an option, because we're not going to discuss.
No.
We're just presenting, or you guys are presenting.
But do you think it's important that council hears as well as committee, or is there a
It's-
difference?
it's the
It's the same group,
people,
it's
then-
just a different legal format for the meeting.
Right.
So we will find that out. So it'll either be the 13th or the 6th.
We
The
didn't
first committee
have this
meeting
in
is
a
the
form. It's
13th.
kinda
The
weird.
first council that we could go to is.
Sorry, kind of a waste of time in my opinion.
And Craig, you're hoping that the BPAC would actually be in attendance and we would do a presentation or
At
just?
least somebody would represent probably the.
We will.
Well, I
You,
mean-
Jeff,
Oh, yeah.
you're on.
I'll make a
perfect.
sign.
I'll put it together.
Great.
You can do it.
Well, just,
Probably be a
if there's
representative.
a Tuesday, I need to, clear with my wife ahead of time, make sure I'm
But so,
available that night.
and so you're saying the PDF, whatever presentation we want to give needs to be done by March 9th, and then the meeting dates would be what?
So March
March.
9th for the 13th.
If it was the 13th
Or it'd be the, if it was the 6th, it would have to be the 2nd of March.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna say have it done.
This,
Yeah. March
I mean, a good goal would be the end of February. to have everything
Okay.
done.
Yeah.
There, got it. All right. I just gotta put time in my calendar.
Well, I mean, you can do a report to council, but, it's the only chance that you really have to speak in
Yeah,
front
we
of
should make it
them.
pretty.
So,
Yeah.
It's just me. I always want everything to be pretty.
you know,
Yeah.
Well, committee is where they discuss things if we want discussion.
right. The question is whether or not it needs to be discussed or it's just a report to council. Because if it's just, like, the committee is when you really want them to take action. So then they would make a decision. If it's just that you could go just straight to council. I'm
would
thinking
that
it
be
might
less
just go-
threatening?
I
I mean,
don't,
or they're not gonna make,
yeah. But see, you're not asking them to take action on anything.
Right.
They don't have to approve the report. You're just giving information. Then it can go straight to council. That's kind of what I'm thinking at that point.
You're suggesting 2 presentations.
No, I'm talking one.
One.
going early.
Let us know what you all think
Yeah,
after
we'll
you
let you
talk
know.
about
Yeah.
We'll
process.
Talk to Bill and Libby.
And I'm just gonna put in my calendar that I want the presentation done by the end of February.
There you go.
So I'll reserve
Yeah.
time to put the whole thing together.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, I put Bike Month on here because there is a lot of work and planning that goes into Bike Month. And CCB's been carrying the load the last 3 years. And Jeff, their president, is working full-time now. And so they are not going to be doing the amount of heavy lifting that they've done in the past. And I think that we should think about how to be more engaged in this and how we could be involved in planning and engaging in activities for that month as members of BPAC. And so I wanted to throw that out there. I am always involved and help with Bike to School Day, which is the first Wednesday, and I know that's what we've done on campus that day as well, because next week is finals, and that's not a good time for
Anything.
biking to work or class on campus.
Is Bike Month May?
Yes.
Yes, and so National Bike to Work Day is in the second week, and it is. Let me look at the dates here. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? But there are a lot of other things that we have planned, over the years. But I've got Bike to Work Day is May 3rd. Is that right? I thought
Yeah.
it was.
That's
For here, not nationally.
right. We've all,
Actually, it shows Bike to School Day is on the 10th this year.
So
That's right.
what we were talking about at previous planning meetings
Yeah.
for the community was the 3rd.
that we do it.
Yeah,
And that's
so
what we've
it's
done in the
switched.
past. It just
Yeah,
makes
so it's the
sense.
second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bike.
Because of finals.
Well, and also because Walk to School Day is the first Wednesday, and they've got it's the second Wednesday for Bike to School Day, so that.
But we can
confuses
put
me.
them both together.
Well, no, we do Bike to School Day on the National Day, which will be May 10th.
For K through 12.
Yeah, K through 12, and so but we will be doing this year. Everybody, the campus and Bike to Work will be on the 3rd.
Oh, okay. So bike to
Yeah,
work.
yeah. So I was wrong.
Which is yeah.
Bike to Work will
Okay.
be on the 3rd, and Bike to School will be on the 10th. And in fact, I'm going to the National APA Conference in New York City, and I very deliberately planned my flight back at the night of the 9th so that I can be here for the next day, which means my intern and other people get to do all the final legwork for that. But it's not as much work as Walk and Roll to School Day. We've had a lot of resistance from schools for this event. They don't understand that we're saying everyone has to be able to bike to school, but that we're teaching kids about safe biking as part of this event. and whether they can bike to school or not. A lot of their kids are biking other places, and
Yeah, it's about biking
right.
more than.
And those who can bike to school that day, but you know, it would be nice to have them take us up on our offers to do helmet safety demonstrations and bike rodeos, things like that that can engage all of the kids at the school. But we've had a hard time getting that message out. And we can work with parents, like Jeff at his school can talk to, you know, the PTA and the principal about things that we can do. And we've been sometimes done bike rodeos at the school, and those work pretty smoothly. We do them in the afternoon just with the 4th and the 5th grade, and it's just a couple of hours. And those have worked well. So those are all things that we end up doing with kids. The big event on the 3rd, they need help with stations, and the city staff have really done all of the work for hosting a station for downtown Urbana in the past. And I don't think we've had any other stations in Urbana except around campus, have we?
There's, Gabe's done one at Brookins in the past.
That's right. They've done one at Brookins. Mm-hmm. And so, are there ways that we can help with that would be, you know, a way to highlight the event more and make it more engaging for people in the community? There are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of information on the website. So I wanted to throw it out there and hear your thoughts. Some of us are already deeply involved in this. Lily will be deeply involved on campus. In fact,
fun, you guys.
she's in charge of it.
It's fun, you guys.
Yeah. And but I wanted to hear from other people on BPAC about things that you think that we could do, take on, etc.
It's hard. I mean, I think the most effective bike to work stuff that I've experienced is when you have competitions between, like, you know, how many people bike to work at Carl, how many people like to work at the university.
The cities do that. Mm-hmm. They have a trophy that and Urbana's been winning. A little unfair because they are smaller, so it's easier, but.
Yeah, it's percentage-wise.
It's
But I
percentage-wise.
still think that is easier. Because when you have
You have smaller distances to if you live in town, to
Right,
bike.
yeah.
But and it doesn't have to just be. You can do something besides bike to work day. There's bike to market on Saturdays. Like we could do rides. We have the lunar cycle ride.
Mm-hmm.
There are other kinds of rides that we could sponsor.
But so back to this bike, there is a competition?
Between the cities,
Between the cities.
city staff.
Oh, city staff.
But no, it'd be great to
Okay.
have a competition
Oh,
with
yeah.
businesses.
So, okay, so to help for
We
people
could
to
have it.
send out.
Well,
and
just,
try
I mean,
to-
my question, like, yeah, my concern
So
with
how
the
can we
bike-
get?
Yeah, my
places to
my
do that?
concern with, like, yeah, so we'll do, you know, there'll be the lunar cycle ride, there'll be all, you know, there'll be
But could we
Sydney Dairy Farm
sponsor
bike
a
ride.
prize for the business with the most people biking to work or
Or
something?
even
Well-
just some giveaway for doing it.
The question is like, what is the, like, if, like, we can do all these different rides and stuff, but to me, I think I'm interested in getting people who have never commuted to work, people who have a regular trip all the time, you know, that want to do the trip, and like converting like kids to bike to school and say, oh wow, I actually can do it, you know, or, so to me, I'm more interested maybe in that aspect of it, and like just really focusing if our resources maybe on that, and I don't know what I mean by that or how we
Well,
would focus our resources on that, but that is like, or free coffee, like you just say,
Well,
if you
they
bike
get
to,
that.
if you bike
our-
to work, you get free coffee.
We offer that at our station, yes,
Right,
here.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
and actually we have the best food in town because Common Ground donates food for our station, and we
That's awesome.
we hands
Oh my
down
gosh.
have the best food and coffee.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really cool, and it's like we can get, you know, if we can get people to, you know, to find the station and to have the coffee and the food. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, it's like that would be just, my question is just like, what are the goals and what are we trying to do here? That's my issue. those are my questions.
Well, and CCB's talking about that. They've got a retreat coming up because they really define a goal every year for what they're trying to accomplish
Okay.
with their bike to work event. But we're not limited by that. We could do
I think
something.
the goal for me in Bike to Work Day is to get people who don't bike to work or uncomfortable to try it. That's your goal is to try to encourage people who would not be biking to work on that day to come out and ride a bike over.
And I wonder if there's a way to like,
Is it about routes?
well,
I
and
think
having
routes
somebody,
would be
routes is
helpful.
huge,
Like, could we
and just
have
have
a beer
somebody.
meetup and we'd all, if you want to bike to work on this day, here's how you.
Well,
They tried that a little bit last year, and it wasn't super duper, but at the same time, it wasn't very well advertised. So
right, and I think
that
that's the
was
kind of
maybe
thing
advertised
that
a
can
little bit
gain
more.
momentum once more people hear about it. And that's
Yeah.
the kind of thing, I know that, sometimes I have like shown people how I ride, it's like, come with me.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
And even, and I've even thought about having, like, doing it on a Saturday morning
Yep.
when there isn't
Good
the
idea.
traffic and you don't really have to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to see, well, the time I did the family ride at See You Across the Prairie, and the family, there was one family, and they said, well, what we really want to know is how we could get to work and drop the kid off at school.
Yep, exactly.
And I was like, okay, let's go.
I think Sue,
that's what I
I
find,
completely agree.
yeah.
I think maybe adults sometimes even more so than
Yes.
K through 12 students need a bicycle train to get themselves from point A to point B.
Well,
the first
especially
time.
if you're car
Um,
culture, you
yeah,
think in car
absolutely.
routes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I am hardcore when I show someone a route. I am like, don't do that. Don't-
Yeah.
no,
don't-
this
I
is
think
where
that
you go on the bike.
I
you know.
think my long-term plan for what I'd like to see a lot of people look at is finding people to
Right.
you're helping encourage people
Bike
to
angel?
step up and escort someone or that in their office or
Yeah.
say like, hey, I know you
Like,
live
let's
over
try it.
here, I'll go bike
A
over
buddy
there and help
system.
you. A buddy system.
Well, they have those
Or
in bigger
departmental
cities, by the way.
leaders.
They have buddy rides.
They do.
and they meet.
And I think those are really
and
successful.
Help people figure out how to ride, but we'd have to get the employer, for example, Carl. We could say, we could work with you guys to help employees who want to ride to work. Figure out how to get here, but I think we have to have a point person to work with in some of those organizations. in
Yeah, because
order
the
to
other thing,
pull that
someone when
off.
they get to Carl, where do I shower? How do I have my clothes? Where do I there's bike commuting is complicated. I mean, it's not.
Right.
that
It's easy
early
to
in the
try,
year,
though.
they probably will not need a shower. It's usually not hot.
No,
in fact,
yeah.
it usually
And a lot of that's
it's
a
often
perception.
cold.
People think they have to ride to work the same way they ride with the Monday night ride. It's like, no, you don't want to do that.
So Cynthia, when you say that CCB is not going to do the heavy lifting, they're still putting together a website, I assume.
Yes, I think so, and I
doing
think
a
they're still
logo.
planning
Well,
bike
that's
to
awesome.
work day, but I don't know if it would be all on the same
serious?
scale. They haven't come to final decisions
That's the
about
thing, like-
exactly.
There's an 11:30 meeting tomorrow.
Could just be a
at
Facebook
Internet,
page.
So anyone who
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
get involved.
And that is correct. We have a meeting tomorrow at lunch at Intermezzo at Cranert for those who can come, 11:30 to 12:30. And so please do, it's a planning meeting. We've met once or twice before.
Twice.
Yes. And so hopefully we'll be able to nail down some more. I mean, CCB's still doing stuff, it's just,
They don't have
they're
as
just
many-
not gonna be able to do as much as they have before. Jeff really spent a lot of
I mean, because
hours.
if there was
definitely.
if there was just like one Facebook page, like this is again why the city needs a point person on this, because if there was a Facebook
Yes.
page, and then
Yeah.
people would be like, you could just be
They
like,
could
show
ask
us your
questions.
commute, show us your bike today, show us,
Yeah.
ask questions, how do you get to and from, what do you
Yeah, and the whole social media thing could happen.
Yeah, I think routes are really big. People need to know how to get places, and it's possible that we could help create some maps with easy routes to get to big destinations. I think that would be really helpful for people. And I know MTD, for example, could use that. I will tell you, most of our staff bicycle and cross the railroad tracks. They will not bicycle down University. And it's not, I don't
Would
think,
never right.
entirely legal for them to cross the railroad tracks.
Right.
Best route.
It's
But they're
best
going to
route.
do it.
I love it.
Well, in fact, when we went out and picked up trash last time, the entire group of 25 people who came and did it went and hiked over the road tracks back to MTD with the managing director leading the way.
But it's
So,
important
you
for
know.
people to know that that's.
See, that's the kind of thing
very
where if you go
important
with
route.
somebody.
Because I had no idea that was there. I actually finally drove a car down it because I was like, "Where is
Yeah,
this
there
where
are
people
several
are-"
streets that did in there. On one of
This-
those streets, there's a man who likes to yell at people.
He has also a nice sign that says "Smile, you're on camera," and it says "Private property."
That's
you are
new. I haven't
trespassing."
seen that.
Oh, he's upped his game. This morning I had a meeting at MTD, and I was for active transportation efforts on campus. And I went there and I took the railroad tracks, and it's covered in like the March mud. You know, it's a horrible mess. So I took university from there to go back to the university, of which was a nightmare. I was passed by 60-mile-per-hour cars.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
no
Like,
one
oh,
likes
cool,
doing
this is
that.
so fun.
Yeah.
I just biked on the grass the one time I tried getting out to MTV.
Meanwhile, there was another very courageous cyclist who we were able to get a break into traffic. I mean, this is just a dangerous situation. This has got to be something that we've got to tackle sometime in the future.
We need us.
A crossing, a safe passage to
a multi-use
Well,
path.
there's the
yeah.
park out there that no one can even get to.
Right.
Right.
You know? And
Yeah,
it's
you
cool.
can't
Everyone
get to
tells
the
me
park.
it's a cool park, and I've always been like, I'm only out there when I go to landscape recycling, so I'm like, I'm not going to a park now. I gotta go do
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
And people
Apex
tell me
is
there's
hard
like
to-
it's a cool park. There's cool stuff happening there.
I've literally seen people walking their dog at their car window there.
I mean, and I could even imagine like that park being a great place.
We were in a meeting one day. We looked out. There's a guy holding his dog walking while he's
But
driving
just
his
like-
car.
Like if we could get people to bike out there, it'd be a cool place to have like a space, where you could have kids ride like permanent spaces where people can learn to ride bikes. And
Where exactly is
Okay.
this?
And
by
bikes.
landscape.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't like. It's
No, you
all-
can't get there.
Okay, well,
Pedestrian.
those of you who can, come tomorrow, and we will keep working on this. And if you have any brilliant ideas you're willing to take on yourself,
Food and coffee. That
please
intrigues me.
let the rest of us know. I think a
Perk your
competition.
But if you if you're planning,
I've been going through old emails.
Love that perky ride.
Perky ride.
I think a
Oh my god, I
competition.
forgot all about that.
I know, right?
Oh.
It was a good idea.
It's a great idea. We should
Great
still should do it.
Definitely.
What?
Perky ride.
Like a Starbucks drink for a reward for trying riding your bike to work.
It was something like that. What was it?
It
It
was
was
a rewards
about.
program.
Yeah, it was some sort of
Yeah.
covered bike parking and something to do with that.
So I think I'm sponsoring an award to the business with
Perky
highest
ride,
number of
though.
people.
It
Right.
made perfect
And
sense
that's
Cycling
at
to
the
work is a
time.
great idea.
because then they
We
could
broke
say,
it
where are
down.
you riding to? And then,
And could we give them a little trophy or something?
Yeah, make a trophy.
It was a cup of coffee. We should get Starbucks to donate free cups of coffee. Like if you gave someone a cup of coffee for biking into
Well,
work.
the university does get donated coffee.
Yeah, no, we
Yeah,
do
but
that
talk
at
about like a
I
card.
love the I
I
used
think
to.
Hyatt Place.
I mean, I participated. Here's one. Here's like a super simple idea. Is that basically in Chicago when you do the bike to work, there's just a rally, and it's really straightforward. And you just go to Daily Plaza, and everybody meets there, and the mayor comes, and then there's a person driving their car and a person biking, and who wins, and everybody just gets
Yeah,
there.
we have
and there's-
not done the bike and car
There's-
race,
and
but
you walk- you-
we have
yeah.
we have city officials and other people at our. We have pictures of it.
But
We
it's
have
like
lots of
everybody,
people show up.
everybody
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
and meets in the one central area.
That's what we do.
Whatever you choose your
Yeah.
central area to be, and then there's like bagels and coffee,
that's
and then
what-
you sit
yeah.
around, and then there'll be like all the little tents for different places.
Yeah, and we have bike repair.
And they tried making it a bigger, longer event, but no one really cared.
Well, no, they're on their way to work.
Right, that's what
So
they
they're
Or they were
not-
like, well, what if we do an after party? And no one came after work. Everyone's like, I don't want to do.
Now
that.
they do around here. You can do
But
that.
it's fun because it's like people
Around
who
here,
bike,
meet at
people
Pizza
who
Hut
bike year
afterward, they
round
do that.
kind of want that.
Especially in
They
May.
want to feel like their
Yeah.
city appreciates them biking. They want to feel like the city because it is harder than just getting in your car and driving. So they want to feel like your city appreciates you doing this, and then they also that's like their reward is that bagel. And people seriously, people get like all worked up about getting their free T-shirt and their bagel, and they're super like. It's hilarious.
That's what they get.
how we do it.
We've given free
It's been working.
T-shirts, free coffee,
But-
free food.
But it's like it's a good way to get new people to bike
Yep.
if they
Yeah.
feel like they get the thing. So it
and the
works.
campus gets more of that, than anybody else
And then it's
because
fun to
so
see
many
all these
Well,
people.
that's-
Yeah, it's a bigger
it's
institution
more natural.
and And so,
Housing's really generous.
yeah. Well, it's 8:30, so I'm going to move us along here. Does anyone have any announcements?
I mean, Monday we'll have our quarterly Ride Illinois conference call. Hopefully I remember it.
I know CCB was talking about trying to get someone to the National Bike Summit. And I think Gabe had said he might be interested, and they had some money to help cover expenses. So if you're interested, you might want to let them know.
Find Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe is interested, and I would be great if Gabe went.
Yeah.
I told them if nobody else would go, I would go if they help with some of my expenses. But I've been really waffling about going this year. But it's really, really important that we have people from downstate attend.
Yeah.
Because they go and lobby and talk to our congressman, and we really need people from downstate to do that.
Well, is the city of Urbana going to send anyone to this?
Charlie said he was going to ask whether the city would help sponsor BPAC members, and the city might be able to offer something, but the main thing that's expensive for DC is housing. And
I have friends there.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I might be able to.
I think you did offer that if we went to the bike summit, that I would help with
I
that.
don't know if you can lobby if you're.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you can. If you're there as an employee, then you can't. But we're not employees. So yeah, they have an event for people who, because of their jobs, can't
Non-governmental.
lobby. So if their employer sent them,
Yeah.
although, our cities send employees to lobby on some of these issues and ask for funding for various projects. So it's kind of hard for me to see what the difference is for this kind of an event. We're usually not asking for a specific amount of money for our community. It's usually more general, but okay. Did anybody have future topics they wanted to? I think next time we'll obviously be talking about our report. And you said you thought you would be talking to us about
Signage wayfinding.
the wayfinding. Okay.
And the only thing I'd bring up, as we've brought up before, is a BPAC Facebook page. And again, if there was a full-time staff member at the city who was in charge of stuff like this, then
Yeah.
that could be a good place for people
Yeah.
to give feedback and interact with people.
And I think next month we'd like to add to the agenda, Lily sent a survey that the Chicago Bicycle
Mayor's, but yeah.
Committee is going to send out to their community. And we have taken that and reworked it for Urbana, and my intern is now adding in some pedestrian questions because we're not just about bicycles. And Annie did a little artwork. I'm going to put that together and send it to staff to take a look at and tell us what you think about how it would work. And then we could chat about it next month and see what we think about sending it out. It was mostly about what does the community think we should be doing, what's most important to them, that kind of stuff, to help us get a little better feel for what the community,
People, yeah.
what do the people want, power to the people.
I don't know about you guys, but I'd love to have some of that crowd downstairs. Like, you guys should be interested in us too. Check that out.
Well, if we do something controversial, they'll
don't worry.
No,
people
yeah. I mean, like,
Well, okay,
Genuine
we want to
fun
have it
interest.
controversial so that, like, these guys want the blue version and these want the green version of the same thing.
Cynthia, you wanted the white version.
Yes.
And then we can say, oh, look, here's the purple version, and it's even cheaper. And they'll all jump on board.
Okay.
Isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, that's
Anything
exactly
else for
right.
future topics? Any announcements behind?
Oh, the
Nothing?
Alta Rural
The ultra
Oh,
rural
yes.
hotspot.
Yeah.
I went to an ultra rural
I don't know if we
hotspot.
want to do
rural
that next
girl.
time. Alta Planning and Design was hired and developed a guide for the Federal Highway Administration on rural and small town bicycle planning.
Oh, cool.
And that just came out, and
pretty
I thought about
long,
sending it to
really
BPAC, but I couldn't decide whether that seemed too self-promoting, and so I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to make any money from doing it, and I didn't even actually have anything to do with writing the guide. But it might be interesting. What I will do is ask the people at Alta who worked on this. I say, when you guys have a presentation on it that I can adapt to show here,
that'd be great.
I think it would be nice, and you know, it's kind of thing too that would be helpful for our trail planning, because the small towns around us that are now going to be accessible, more accessible to people, don't have the money to hire
A planner,
a
yeah.
planning firm like Alta, but this guide would give them information that could help them figure out how to help people get to destinations in their community they want them to get to. It's going to be an economic boon for them if they can help people get to the
Yep.
ice cream shop or the coffee shop or whatever it is. You know, eventually, hopefully, we'd even have things like B&Bs along there that they have in other places that's happened. So,
And there might be an
would be
executive
good.
summary in that report. I just kind of started looking at it and I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. Like I looked at it and I was like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. I was like, gotta put the toy down. But there might just be an executive summary too.
yes, there is.
Yeah. So that's probably where I should have just gone. Yeah.
And the presentation would probably help.
Yeah, that'd be
too,
great.
so.
That'd
Okay.
be fantastic.
All right. Okay.
Vision Zero.
Oh, yeah.
You sent out
Pardon?
you sent out a planning document.
Yes, from Columbia, Missouri,
Right.
one that they did, and I thought that was a really nice document, and I certainly would like for us to, and that was what was included in city council goals this year, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
we can actually start moving on that a little more to figure out how. One of our issues is that a lot of our fatalities now are not occurring on our road. They're occurring on IDOT's road, and I don't know what has happened with their study. We haven't heard boo or peep from them.
Right. It was in Tom's mailbag on Friday.
I saw that
And incidentally, that's where we learn our information too. So,
from Tom Smith.
oh, look at that. That's where they're at with the study. So, you know,
I mean, I
Did
read
we
it.
do anything to rattle their cage?
it's just a different. I mean, I do have faith that they will get the city involved at some point.
I mean, I read a disparaging article though in the Chicago. There was a gentleman who was crossing the street, and it's this area that the city has tried fixing. Everyone and like IDOT just was not being.
Not engaging.
They're not engaging. Like almost, people have been injured. There's been like it's like so. It's just.
Well, they
I don't
did
know.
engage in that they're doing the study, and I think Rita got them to do that.
Okay.
Well, I frankly cornered them at a Kuwat's meeting, and we were going through our annual listing of fatalities, and I said, all our fatalities now, we've done a great job on campus, and we're not seeing them there now. They're happening on University, your road. And I said, do you have any plans to do anything about it?
Which goes through the
No.
campus and it will be a problem.
No, we don't have any plans. I was like, well, I think we should do something about it. People are getting killed. And so, I mean, that was putting their staff on the spot because they can't do it by themselves. But, for heaven's sake, people
Well,
are
it's all
getting
going to blow
killed.
up the next fatality that happens, especially if it's a rich kid who's been, situated in a nice apartment on the other side.
Well, yes,
Well,
I have to
that's
say, I
circle.
found it rather disheartening that
That's very
the fatalities on campus didn't get serious attention until it was someone of a child of a rich and famous family that had connections, and then suddenly it was very important and caused a big problem. I'm glad we finally got something done on that, because I know at that point the university didn't even have money in their budget to restrap their crosswalks annually. And we've come a long way since then. There is a lot better infrastructure on campus now for pedestrian safety, and it shows. I mean, we've definitely reduced fatalities. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor? Adjourn. Any opposed? All right. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate all of your time and engagement.